All right, Johnny, we're up a couple of minutes early before CPT joins in, so I feel like you should just get all your swears out and
Motherfucker!
let's get busy.
Say my taint in your poo bottle. Wee.
I don't even know what that means, and I like
Me either.
it.
Damon did not like it. Sorry, buddy.
I've had a very big morning, and a big evening, and a big couple of days, and
yeah, what's going on?
Well, we're officially taking over Dad's physical person as he, everything he needs to do, food and what happens after food, all the way through. And so it's a lot. It's I feel very lucky to be here because Carol, his wife, is incredibly resilient and a brave and intelligent woman, but she's also a will of the wisp. She's I think the technical word is teensy. And so
really?
Yeah,
so she needs some muscle.
Yeah, and that's what I am right now. I'm the
heavy.
I'm the horse, yeah. So which is good. And I'm glad to be that. It's
glad to be the horse.
Yep. I'm gonna be your beast, bud.
I'm just a horse.
Yeah, but so we've gotten we're on our second wheelchair.
What happened to the first one?
The first one is a little transport one, but it's uncomfortable to sit in. It's mainly to get you from room to room. But because he's increasingly, it's difficult for him to stand and move around.
And you set up that ramp thinking that he could jump that bus.
Yes, that's the redneck. What's the last thing a redneck says before he dies? Watch this.
Watch this.
Yeah, right. From the album Hold My Beer, right. But I'm keeping an eye out for Chicago, by the way. Make sure.
Devin just asked if we can hear.
Oh, good. Okay, let me put him in here, and then I'm just going to. Hi, we hear you.
Now we can.
Yeah,
excellent.
And then I'm going to hide camera, keep audio.
All right, I'm going to send Devin a cat picture.
You're so mean.
No complaints.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, I don't have time. Okay. So not only did we have that, just the normal life stuff becoming, extraordinary, but also on top of that, a couple of my dad's friends came by with a banjo and a fiddle and played songs for him this morning.
60 seconds.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And they played as Carol likes to put it, they play the same song with 3 different names, and then they played a song called Whiskey Before Breakfast, which is one of my dad's favorite like banjo and fiddle tunes. It was nice to see him kind of perk up during that. So
music
does it every time.
Music.
I have a special treat I can show you at some point. I'm gonna have to run upstairs and grab an instrument before you leave the show. You're only with us the first hour today. So.
Yeah, sadly, I've got a memorial to go to. There's a lot of this going around.
Well, at this rate, the audience is sick of seeing me all the time, so they're going to be very disappointed. I'm just kidding. So, all right, I'm going to bring my mic up a touch. And
ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Now, live from Chicago, the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Hal Sparks, actor, comedian, and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hal Sparks.
All right, let's do this.
So it's, I would pick the most eventful week to date in Epstein story.
For real. Yeah, you need to be like, the world needs you doing like moment by moment breakdowns of every statement. Yeah.
Oh my Lord. So
because at least Trump is sounding more coherent than ever.
Right. After it is my theory that after he obviously fell asleep in the medical meeting, whatever that the dog and pony show, the pharmacological dog and pony show, that when he fell asleep in the second part of that meeting after the guy passed out, they clearly are very tightly limiting when he is talking to people and what speed he is on, what Adderall or Ritalin or combination of, of stimulants he is on at any given time.
Yeah.
And the I think we should, being that it's, is technically the Sabbath for a good deal of people in the world, and I normally this would be church on Sunday for my folk down here in Kentucky. I feel we read from the book of Marjorie, chapter 1 and done. I am withdrawing my support and endorsement of Congresswoman, in quotes, Marjorie Taylor Greene of the great state of Georgia. Over the past few weeks, despite my creating record achievements for our country, including a total and complete victory on the shutdown, closed borders, no taxes, no men and women's sports or transgender for everyone, ending stopping Biden's record-setting inflation, biggest regulation cuts in history, stopping 8 wars, all in caps, rebuilding our military, being respected, all caps, by every country in the world, as opposed to being laughing stock that we were just 12 months ago, having trillions of dollars, record-setting in parentheses with an exclamation point, invested, in caps, in the USA, and having created the hottest, caps and in quotes, country anywhere in the world, from being a dead, all caps, country just 12 months ago, and so much more, in parentheses, exclamation point. All I see wacky, capitalized, in quotes, Marjorie do is complain, 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 all caps.
It's all of this ire on one questionable figure.
Oh, it seemed to all begin when I sent her a poll stating that she should not run for senator or governor. She was at 12% and didn't have a chance, in quotes, unless, of course, she had my endorsement, which she wasn't about to get, exclamation point, close parentheses. She has told many people that she is upset that I don't return her phone calls anymore. But with 219 congressmen/women, 53 U.S. senators, 24 cabinet members, and almost 200 countries, and an otherwise normal life to lead, which I don't know what that is, an otherwise normal life to lead. I can't take a ranting lunatics, all caps, just capitalized, ranting lunatics call every day. I understand that wonderful conservative people are thinking about primarying Marjorie in her district of Georgia, district is capitalized, that they too are fed up with her and her antics, and if the right person runs, they will have my complete, capitalized, and unyielding support.
Are you that right person?
I think so. I'm actually thinking about renting a condo there for 90 days, which is all I need to do to technically be a resident. She has gone far left, capitalized, and even doing The View with their low IQ Republican hating anchors. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again, all caps, exclamation point. Now, the size of this post, which is just this brick of text, is, in a very tough time in my life, filled my family after my dad had taken a nap. He was sleeping soundly, and we'd all snuck out of the room so he could sleep. And we're all sitting in the kitchen gaggling and going, what is happening in the world while we are, in this moment, feeling a bit like that Japanese soldier who didn't know the war had ended, who was in the woods, just completely cut off from all news. And to think that, ladies and gentlemen, is not even close to the worst thing that happened in magadom this week. The big one being, of course, we have to talk about this, is the emails released by the Democrats from the files given to them by the DOJ. Released from the Epstein estate. The context of which is, well, here, I have the actual email.
I need more context.
I think you do, because that'll probably ease it up.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, if we know what they were talking about.
One of the hardest things, and before we get to break, I need to get through this whole email. So, I mean, it's not a lot.
All right, I'll be quiet.
It's like a text exchange. This is the boomer texting, where they use email, and just stack email chains, and then they keep the replies on there and just keep tagging on, but it reads upside down instead of, down from the top. Right. So it starts with Mark Epstein, the brother of the possibly still alive, living on an island with a new nose, Jeffrey Epstein. You don't think I'm actually going to buy, if the right can think that Erica Kirk and JD Vance have conspired to kill Charlie Kirk so they can take over the organization, because Charlie would have been the next head of MAGA, and they couldn't have that.
You're not going to make it through this email at this pace.
No. I am allowed to believe any conspiracy theory I want to, especially if it's irritating to all those involved on that side. Okay, Mark Epstein, how are you doing? A while back, you mentioned you were pre-diabetic. Has anything changed with that? What is your boy Donald up to now? This is 2018, by the way. Jeffrey replies.
I haven't talked to him in 15 years.
Yeah, Jeffrey replies, hey, all good. Bannon with me. This is because Steve Bannon was in Paris with Jeffrey Epstein, helping him on a rehab your image tour. Because that's the guy I would go to. You know what I mean?
Whoa,
because because Ron Jeremy was too busy with his trial. The response, and I don't know how I'm going to read this on the air. He goes, all good. Bannon with me. Mark Epstein replies, ask him if Putin has the photos of Trump blanking Bubba. The from the Latin of fellatio, the great, testiculus and fellatio meet in the Roman Senate. He goes, if he's got that picture, and Jeffrey Epstein replies, and I thought I had Surus, and I thought I had problems, which is, blackmail issues and all this other stuff. And Trump's got all this stuff hanging around. To which Mark replies, you and your boy Donnie can make a remake of the movie Get Hard.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And then I guess Jeffrey replies, you mean Donnie T? Like that's their nickname for him. And,
who could ever they mean?
Yes. And Mark says, I'd rather be in Donnie D's shoes. Now, I don't know who that is. That might be another Donald somebody. Duck, perhaps? We don't know.
Probably.
Or another buddy of theirs.
I don't even know if he wears shoes.
Yeah.
I know Daisy Duck does.
Let me tell you something. I have no inside scoop from Democrats. They don't call me. I'm not on any kind of payroll to, I am not I do not now, nor have I ever worked for the CIA or any intelligence agency. I don't have any indoor, like behind the scenes, someone slipping me notes. But I will tell you this. This is the least of it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
This is not the worst email. The Democrats are not dropping the worst stuff. They are saving it like an ace up their sleeve. And beyond that, that's the stuff they've had access to. The stuff the DOJ is hiding, and the vote is coming, I think, this Wednesday. And
how will voting against that look? That won't look good.
Oh boy, I'll tell you how it'll look. It'll look like a primarying in the spring and a loss in the fall.
Yeah,
because maggots will not have it. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Audience, chat room, we love you. Thank you for joining us this morning. And we'll see you guys in a minute. You're a very talented young man. And can I also say that in the Marjorie Taylor Greene thing, well, I'll save it. I'm going to save it.
Yeah.
Because.
So I just added one of these things to my my tremolo because it was, see that little guy there?
Yeah, that's a IKEA hinge, right?
Kind of.
The ones that makes it close slowly.
Well, no, this one it keeps the bridge from lifting when I bend.
Yes.
So it's more like a Van Halen.
Yeah.
Only drops.
Yeah. Gotcha. Beautiful.
Getting some very nice super chats, Hal.
Oh, beg your pardon. I am not seeing them because of where I am.
Well, Hal Vickery is, of course, running the table.
Oh, thank you. No, there we go. There we see it. Thank you. And Angela, I saw that one. There you go. And Poop Picker Upper, thank you so much. And there's the. Hold on. I forgot I'm in this thing. I can do this.
10 seconds.
Thank you.
I can thank you guys that way.
Razi20 is a member for 26 months. Lisa Mia Moore. Jackie's a member for 20 months.
I was trying to find a.
Now back to Hal Sparks on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT AM.
Welcome back. So I will say that one of the things about the Marjorie Taylor Greene thing that is a sort of a wonderful sidecar, Johnny Million, to what's going on with her and Trump, the back and forth. Besides the texts between the two of them that she just dumped to show what he was really mad about, because he was saying that, he's trying to make it about the fact that she was going to run for Senate and she decided against it. And it was him that talked her out of it or something like that. Is Cat Turd making, famously Cat Turd and Laura Loomer. Cat Turd's phrase over the Marjorie Taylor, by the way, can I just say hats off to the Major. He's not the first, but he's the most vociferous in calling her Marjorie Trader Greene.
Oh, nice. That's good.
Trump has picked up that moniker and said Marjorie Trader Greene is a disgrace to our great Republican Party in all caps. And Cat Turd's response was, "I'm loving this." Yeah.
Wait, who's Cat Turd?
Huh? He's one of the right-wing accounts on Crapper that has driven the Republican thought machine for a while, or lack thereof. Laura Loomer, same thing. President Trump has adopted my 4-year-old nickname for MTG, Marjorie Trader Greene. I'd be lying if I said I'm not loving this. It seems like a memo went out to all the close to Trump, slacktivists online and the loudmouths to say you love this, and they're all obeying orders directly. They're quoting each other, saying there's a lot of I'm loving this, I love this, I'm loving this, right? Eric Daugherty, who's saying breaking President Trump is holding nothing back against lightweight Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Brown. Green grass turns brown when it begins to rot. That's his. Okay.
Oh wow, yeah,
because he did. Yeah. Sorry, you can't quite read. I'll hang it at an angle. There you go. Lightweight Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Brown. Green grass turns brown when it begins to rot, which is just weird. It also turns brown in the winter and then turns green again in the summer. I think winter's approaching. I suppose the storm is coming. Right. QAnon betrayed the entire Republican Party when she turned left. I don't know what that means. Like that again. I guess it was when she endorsed Mamdani was probably the last straw. I guess. I'm of course kidding. Please don't gasp in the chat. Like, did that happen? It did not happen.
I was about to ask if that
performed
happened.
Poorly on the pathetic View, and became the rhino that we all know she always was. Just another fake politician, no different than Rand Paul Jr., Thomas Massey in quotes, like they're the same person or something. Maybe that's what he means. Rand Paul Jr. is his nickname for Thomas Massey. Now, all right.
I'm thinking while you read all this, Hal, is there an equivalent on the left for these kinds of diatribes that just like just tear people down over and over with all of this hyperbole?
Well, not from, there were Bernie bros and stuff like that went after Hillary and were kind of vicious about that stuff, but they were the rank and file. It was not the leadership. There was never a point where, where Bernie was coming on and saying the same things they were about Hillary Clinton. He was just, his criticisms were, political and that of a candidate, but never crossed a line into just, insult and, schoolyard bullying tactics. But he finishes up, he goes, no different than Rand Paul Jr., Thomas Massey, who got caught, I don't know what this means, got caught being a full-fledged Republican in name only. Rhino, in parentheses, all caps, exclamation point. Make America great again, 3 exclamation points. Got caught being a Republican in name only. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
It is, again, I mean, his brain is tapioca and we know this, but it seems to be, and I got to tell you, Democrats need to flick this all the time. They don't need to dig in. They don't need to go, finally, Marjorie Taylor Greene is seeing the light. Maybe she would like to run maybe we actually do have a Democrat in that seat. Don't do any of it. Just go, ooh, that Marjorie stuff, huh? That's all you have to do, because they will pick up the ball and run it into their own end zone. That's what you have to know about Republicans in this situation. That is where we say that, never underestimate Donald Trump's ability to F up a free lunch. And there he is, ladies and gentlemen, with probably the most pained thumbs up I have ever seen in my life with Marjorie back when they were friends. This is their prom shot that I'm showing online. There has been, it's interesting, but the Hodge twins, do you know who the Hodge twins are? These two.
No, were they in that movie, the Social Network?
No, the Hodge twins are two like right-wing conservative Black influencers, and they started out as borderline Andrew Tate kind of people, like giving incels advice.
Yeah. Because you never want to act this way in front of a woman, bruv.
That's right. They're the ones who start their show by going, got a good show today. Damn good show. Got a damn good show. Right. That's their and they give away trucks and do like, where they get the money to give away trucks on their channel is once they became the conservative twins for a while, when they were helping Trump online, all of a sudden they had money to give away free pickup trucks on their show. I'm not saying there's causation. I'm saying there's direct spooky correlation that is very much like the tenant media stuff, just more than likely American money. So still, I don't get me wrong. I don't think their influence has been bought in that they believe something different than what they're saying. They're not being hypocritical or it's not a grift. They're that dumb, but they believe what they believe, and that's never going anywhere. That they just, somebody looked at them and said they could monetize it, as it were. But they actually are on Marjorie Taylor Greene's side in this, which, yeah. And
that is surprising.
Yes. And it has a lot to do with Israel. It has a lot to do with Marjorie Taylor Greene's support for Israel, or lack of support, rather, is that she thinks she's one of these people who ran on this idea, no more stupid wars, and we don't need to be the police of the world. And there were some of these conservatives that were just BSing. They didn't really believe this. They want their buddies at Lockheed Martin and Boeing and stuff to keep getting big contracts. And mainly, by the way, for all the attention that the big defense companies get in the, quote, military industrial complex, and the overfixation, I would say, between people about companies like that, like that make the fighter jets and the drones and stuff like that. Even Palantir. You forget that that is a relatively small percentage of the contracted out money from the Pentagon. A big portion of it is ammunition. And and in a lot of red states, there are ammo factories and artillery factories that make the shells necessary. That is the remaining factory jobs in a bunch of these states. And so one of the reasons why they love a big military budget is the more tanks you got, the more rounds you need to practice with them. Any new stuff, they love new tech because you have to train with that new tech. And all of our soldiers on all of our bases have to train. And that ammunition has to come from somewhere. And it is a much bigger lobby than people think it is. I would argue that it is a much bigger lobby than even Boeing and the rest of them, because they have commercial and technological sides where they have somewhere else to sell. Whereas the ones that make, artillery shells specifically, the ammo factories, we know now that, after Glenn Beck whining about it, that they overproduce so that they can sell ammo to American citizens at a cut rate, at a cheaper price. So one of the reasons why ammo in this country is so cheap is because the military places get, contracted, and then there's stuff in the budget that says, hey, in case something war breaks out, always have a bunch of extra stock on hand. But we never actually need it because we have far more than we need, and we have multiple sites. It's always been, every state. That's one of the biggest pork purchases that happen every time, is that one of the ways they pad themselves. And it's funny how they send so much information to things like SNAP and these other programs that don't even approach, the entirety of the SNAP program. It's whatever, $115 billion a year to $90 billion a year, depending, right? But it results in lack of starvation and productivity and people going to work. And so it actually produces money because people don't have to, quit their job and go someplace else or get fully on welfare, those kind of things. So it's one of those things where they say $1 turns into $2. It really does when it comes to SNAP. That's not the case with ammo factories. They just make it and they blow it up. And there's we got to take a break, but Georgia, Arkansas, especially Mississippi, Louisiana, they all have these big ammo factories, and that's where a bunch of this defense money goes. And if you're no longer the police of the world, the need for that starts to go way down, and a bunch of red states start seeing a hit on their budget and their bottom line. We'll be back right after this. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to pull up the texts. MTG shares messy breakup texts with Trump over Epstein, because this will get us back on track.
That's what we're talking about.
And I would call it the bubbification. Let's see.
$50 seconds.
Okay. Open up. Okay, they don't have it on there. Okay, we're coming back. Okay. All right.
That's how we're reading things.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Okay, so last night she posted the texts that she sent to Trump and received back about the Epstein files, which are really what led to their acrimonious breakup. I mean, not since Benifer have we seen such a schism drive such interest in the and on the magazine racks in the impulse buy aisle at Walmart. But before we get to that, her latest post is, I am now being contacted by private security firms with warnings for my safety, as a hotbed of threats against me are being fueled and egged on by the most powerful man in the world, the man I supported and helped get elected. Aggressive rhetoric attacking me has historically led to death threats and multiple convictions of men who were radicalized by the same type of rhetoric. She leaves out of tap rhetoric. Maybe by the same tap rhetoric being directed at me right now, this time by the President of the United States. As a woman, I take threats from men seriously. Ooh, damn. Is this fifth wave feminism? I now have a small understanding of the fear and pressure the women who are victims of Jeffrey Epstein and his cabal must feel. As a Republican who overwhelmingly votes for President Trump's bills and agenda, his aggression against me, which also fuels the venomous nature of his radical internet trolls, many of whom are paid. Ouch. Ooh. Ooh, there we go. Let's dig into that a little. This is completely shocking to everyone. Editor's note. This is completely shocking to no one. My phone is blowing up with constant amazing support. I'm so thankful. The political industrial complex, whatever that is, everything an industrial complex now. Can we stop at that already? We had the censorship industrial complex. Now we have the political industrial complex. All right. The toxic, violent nature of American politics must end. You think? Jesus, lady. Where is it? Our country is worth saving, and it can only be done if we pull together and save ourselves. There is a bunch of people, like maggots. By the way, there's a train going by.
I hear it.
Yeah. It's. I swear to God, I feel like I should be hoboing, my way across the country when that train goes by at all hours.
Yeah.
I would like to say for the record that the train comes by at 2 in the morning and then sometimes followed by 5 in the morning, oftentimes. MTG equals Liz Cheney 2.0. Obviously Cat Turd responding to it. Okay, so let's get to, if we can, the text messages between Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is from him. This is, check the flight logs of Epstein's plane. Bill Clinton is on there like 26 times. Hillary too, exclamation point. For many of us, releasing the Epstein files has always been for the women who were victims of Jeffrey Epstein, but also because we believed that Democrat bad guys like the Clintons were entangled and involved with him. Epstein was the spider that wove the web into the of the deep state. Lean into it. This is her to Donald Trump. And his response was, the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. In every single interview I have done, I have defended President Trump. I've said over and over, the women say he did nothing wrong, and their attorney says he's the only one who helped. And the Democrats had 4 years to release the files, but did nothing. Stop ignoring the women. Many of them literally voted for President Trump and say so publicly. Them being raped as teenagers is not a hoax. And apparently this is because she's texting back and forth through his one of his assistants, and that's how they, and he's like, you can just imagine him yelling across the room, after she's read that to him, and he just, the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, write that, type that in there, right? This is coming. and many people recall, and I will continue to use this analogy until we know we are rid of this ridiculous human being in office, or however he leaves this world, which I actually believe. I am right now on. My bet is on the stairs coming out of Air Force One. That's my guess. If his life lines up as it always has, with the kind of stuff that we've always experienced with him, it's going to be the stairs on Air Force One, and it's going to be from the top to the bottom, and no one else to blame. And they will Zapruder film the hell out of this to make it think somebody shot a spitball full of Vaseline at his feet, so he slips and falls. But in reality, it's just going to be. And it's why he's terrified of going down the steps. It just really is. Yeah. And okay, so she has been back and forth about, there are a couple of things that Marjorie Taylor Greene has dug in on. One is obviously Ukraine and her weirdness about that, but it seems to be tied to this idea that we should not be giving money to any foreign country. So she's trying to be one of these kind of right-wing purists about, like, stop being the police of the world, right? And she seems oddly consistent about it. Well, and trying to stay within that, while I support Israel's right to exist, I don't believe we should be involved in their problems and that kind of thing. And that issue alone has won her kudos from Nick Fuentes and the Hodge twins and that side of MAGA. That side of MAGA.
Cool.
Yeah, right. Which is an increasingly powerful block. And think of those folks as the TYT of MAGA. They will ultimately serve only one purpose. They will not direct policy. They will not change policy. They will not improve policy. They will not help the agenda of their, the party they allegedly are aligned with get done. They will simply suppress the vote. And we do not need maggots to see the light. We just need them to see the lie. And eventually, if they want to come around and have a conversation, we can point out the fact that, man, oh man, when SNAP benefits started drying up in these red states, and they were on the edge of having to deal with this and recognize that they had a huge budget deficit, unlike blue states, and no ability to borrow, unlike blue states, that they need those SNAP benefits. And boy, did they start sounding like Democrats. People are going hungry. All of a sudden, when you actually have to govern, no matter what you do, you start sounding like a Democrat. When you have to show something, you have to show your work. Like in math class when you're in school, and solve this problem and show your work. When you have to show your work, or that you're working at all, which is largely what that's about. Yeah. You need, you start sounding like a Democrat, somebody who's actually going to pass a bill, do something, instead of just like, Kennedy giving these speeches on the floor, sounding like a side character and an under five in an old Disney cartoon. Well, tarnations, these cats are running all over the room, that kind of thing. Well, whisk my whiskers, if you're going to accomplish something, and this is, I said when he got elected this time, that one of the only recourses we have is to shove the presidency down his throat. You have to make them, it's amazing to me how when Democrats get elected, they get started doing all kinds of stuff, doing it the best they can, trying to get, in a pluralistic society where diversity is our strength and you do not have uniformity of thought on anything. Oh my goodness, Hal Vickery, thank you so much.
Yeah, he's ridiculous.
Dear Lord, bless you. That that caught me off guard. Now I've lost my train of thought, which rarely happens, but luckily a train will be along any minute now behind me. But when they actually, when we're talking about Democrats and everybody's like, we have to hold them accountable. We got to hold their feet to the fire. We talk so viciously about our own side being, in lockstep. And even when they are criticizing them because they can't get everything because we don't have all the votes, or we didn't, in this case, by the way, they do not have control of the House. They do not have control of the Senate. They do not have control of the Supreme Court, and they do not have the administration. And that is voters making that decision, largely our voters standing down in the last election and not voting. So the idea that we're going to hold their feet to the fire still is word. We got to hold Democrats accountable when they're in the minority everywhere. Meanwhile, it never occurs to anyone that if you have Republicans running everything, maybe, just maybe, try holding their feet to the fire. Maybe, just maybe, call their office and say, why isn't this problem getting solved? Now, they may suggest a solution to a problem you don't like. And that might be the reason why you're not like, I don't want this person to try and solve this problem, because whatever they do, it will be awful. But a lot of problems, and this is where we run into the crust thinking it's the pizza. A lot of problems don't have a far right or a far left solution. They simply don't. Not in a democracy anyways. And so you're going to have to come to, some sort of agreement. But also, sometimes there's only a couple of solutions that exist, period. It's not even partisan. You can, make it. What happens often when people make something partisan that only has a couple of solutions, you end up that the partisanship around it is really about actively choosing to not solve the problem. Yeah. And this I would lay on the feet of the people who were protesting at the DNC about Gaza, but, not protesting at Mar-a-Lago, obviously, when that's where the deal to turn Gaza into beachfront property was actually being made. Not they're just going to let it happen, or they're looking the other way, or they're tacitly supporting something, but actively choosing to do this. No one, went down and protested that. They yelled at the people who were already trying to do the best they could with the limited tools they had at the time. Meanwhile, by the way, those people, if you notice, there is still fighting in Gaza. It is as if we're back to right before October 7th in the exchange of fire that's going on, maybe even at a heightened level. And the protests, those magic protesters, have all dried up. And I would also like to point out, while I'm on a diatribe about this, they never showed up for Sudan. Sudan has entered one of the darkest periods. And I talked about it all summer. I was bringing it up in the spring. I was trying to, remind everyone that this was going on as best I could, to the limit that people care about it. And of course, with the number of things we're dealing with in domestic politics. But the death toll in Sudan right now is somewhere between 3 to 5 times the death toll in Gaza. And not a peep. You know who's behind the Rapid Strike Force? The UAE. You know who Trump's golfing buddies are? The UAE, the leadership of the United Arab Emirates. They are the primary suppliers of weapons, of ammunition and support to the Rapid Strike Force. The arms come from Russia. The UAE and the Russians have formed a coalition to ethnically cleanse effectively all of Sudan and Darfur. And again, you'll occasionally, I have to hunt for articles on it to find out the latest.
Yeah, I never hear about it.
Are people shutting down? The UAE gives grants to colleges too. The UAE has, famously, we've had this talk about, like, the United Arab Emirates giving, $1 billion grants to American universities. Are people camping on the lawn, screaming about, are all Muslims on the hook for the UAE the way all Jews seem to be on the hook for Israel in this situation? Not at all. So what I will say to that is, if you're going to hold somebody's feet to the fire, start with the active measure. Start with the active participants. Then if you want to sheepdog people who aren't doing, you don't think are doing their best, then you can get to them. Then you're allowed to gripe. And again, if you want to talk about primarying Democrats and all that kind of stuff, cool. You're allowed to do it when we reach 60% of the House and 60 votes in the Senate. Then have at it. But until then, it's useless slacktivist garbage. And and maybe I'm particularly sensitive about this right now while I'm surrounded by, Kentuckians who complain all the time about the government and how it can't do anything right. And yet I'm seeing the hospice care facility people from Kentucky Connect and the people that work with us to help my dad and that are helping everybody else, in Kentucky in their 30s with, physically, devastated human beings for a myriad of reasons, some self-inflicted, some job created, some genetic, hereditary, and those people are gems. My mom worked in home health services for Frankfort, Kentucky. She went around vaccinating rednecks who pretend like they would never touch the stuff, and they've all gotten, quote, the jab for everything. It's a farce. So if you're going to criticize people, should you be able to criticize your own side? Of course.
Yeah.
But have some perspective. Go after the active participants first. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this. And I know Johnny has to break at the bottom of the hour, so I appreciate him being with me today. Love you, brother. We'll be back right after this.
Yeah.
I get so wound up about just when you go offline for a while.
Yeah.
You recognize sort of the impotent ping pong politics that are going on half the time, where it just seems like it's more akin to being a cutter than it is to being part of the solution.
Just the self-inflicted damage.
Yeah. And there is zero purpose. I got to tell you, the distance between, by the way, during my break, we'll talk about this. Oh, wait, we'll talk about this when we come back. Because Democrats are doing strategies that are boxing Republicans in. And there's this nihilistic idea that, well, it's not going to work anyways. Because, well, again, I want to save it for the air.
60 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for gifting the memberships. I didn't see who did that, but I'm seeing all the people become members on there. It's lovely.
So crazy.
And thanks again, Hal Vickery. That was really sweet. I'm scrolling through here to make sure I don't miss those, but thank you, Booger Man.
Booger Man.
Oh, from Bug Maui Cakes, Dwight and Tunes. Aw. At some point, I might. I'm worried about opening the door because Chance will come in here. My dad's dog.
How bad would that be?
It'd be lovely, and he can drive nails with his tail. Thank you.
Yeah, just bang.
Yeah, like that. Like if he's standing near a wall, if he lays on the ground and I walk towards him.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program.
Battle stations, everybody. Let's go.
So in being, yes, I do too. In being offline, you get this kind of perspective of the ping pong politics that we see every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets incredibly frustrating to see the amount of wasted time that Democrats and liberals and people who allege themselves to be far left. Now, I expect the faux-gressives to be, phonies anyways. And I don't think anyone at TYT actually wants anything they say they do. I think at this point, it's pretty clear that if anything, they're a tool for, right-wing suppression of the votes of the left. And they are actively engaged. It's not like a stupid accident where they're just incapable. After years, they got to know. But like I said, I'm surrounded very much by the sort of the realities of life while we're dealing with this with my dad, and a bit of the horse race that you see going on, or the sportsification of politics. And there is a real need for people to maintain that eye on the prize, keep an awareness of who your opponent is in this situation. You ever see like a sports team where they're playing against the other side, and somebody on your team starts yelling at somebody on their team, on their own team, because they're not pulling their weight or something along those lines, so much so that they miss the play themselves.
Yep.
And they, that hubris, that anger, that kind of self-immolation makes them miss what's actually going on, that there is a whole other team trying to stop them from scoring and stop them from moving down the field or doing anything. And instead of focusing on that, they just kind of nitpick each other into a losing position. That is precisely why we don't have the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and the administration. That's it. There is no other reason. And I think it was Patton Oswalt who was like quoting Jurassic Park when he was, kind of on everything, like a whole lot of coulda without considering the shoulda.
Yeah.
And can you? Yeah. Should you becomes the issue.
Right.
We're my I guess step uncle, I guess my dad's wife's brother has been with us, and he's an engineer, and he works for the California water system. So he knows all about, Trump turning on the tap and all that illusion and the back and forth about that.
Yeah.
And he meets with Newsom about dealing with real water issues like a real human being. And he's an engineer. He works on the mechanics of making that stuff happen. He is a government worker who spends every day, that he's at work, making sure the water doesn't go the wrong direction and drown a bunch of people, and it doesn't flood areas, and doesn't, and is in reserve in case it is needed, and that kind of stuff. And it is a major undertaking. And he thinks and acts like an engineer. He's always, he's chewing BUBBA-licious, and he's got the cap on, and he's going, woo, woo. I know that's where your brain went, Johnny Million. So I
whatever
for you. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. But the other day, he's the tallest member of the House right now, because my dad is spending his days sitting and laying down. And so Carol and Carl are the two, and Carol asks Carl, can you reach that cup on that shelf? And Carl says, yes, I can.
Oh no.
Yeah. And the real question is, would you?
Well, yeah.
It's not about ability. It's about whether you will participate in the zone. Now that is a thing I do with my son all the time. My son knows the difference between can and may and can and would. And it's very distinct in our family that's ubiquitous. Would you please, can you please is different. If you add the can you please, then that transmutes the word. But if you just ask somebody about their ability, the answer is either yes or no. And the conversation ends there. And there's the same thing about criticism on your own side. I think it was like Cornel West, who was like the first week of Obama was like, we've got to hold, Brother Barack's feet to the fire. And I'm like, he just got there. You don't even know if your plan is right. And you don't even know what he's going to be capable of passing yet. If you want to hold his feet to the fire, we'll talk mid-second term in reality, because that was the marching orders on our side of the aisle forever. And again, this doesn't mean you can't criticize someone. It just means that you have an ethical and moral obligation to recognize what you are, what value that has versus a better use of your limited time on this planet. Would it be better that you held Trump's feet to the fire, shoving the presidency down his throat? Why isn't this working? Flooding his office with calls about grocery prices and that kind of stuff will have a way bigger effect than calling, Schumer's office and having everybody there go, yeah, we know. Yeah. Yes. Well, here's a good idea. How about put us in power next time and we'll fix some of this. And give us enough votes where we have a mandate that scares Republicans into behaving. Because one of the other things that Republicans clearly don't believe, and this clearly believe, and this comes from, friends of my dad's, because this is Kentucky, who voted for Trump or, are Republicans in general, because I think we might be even in or next to Thomas Massey's district where I am right now. And those folks, they, by and large, their love of Trump seems to have faded a great deal from the last time I talked to any of them about this. And a bunch of them are, they're still not going to attack their own side in the process. They will just drop back and pretend to be independents. That's what most of them did. That would be the Obama voters that voted for Trump and go back and forth. That would be the, conservatives that recognize that you can only conserve stuff if it exists, that if you have a functioning system in place. There's nothing to conserve if you destroy the rule of law. There's nothing to conserve if you, in any way destroy the system. Like, what America are you defending with your gunboats and all this kind of stuff if it doesn't have the Constitution anymore? America is its geographical space and the Constitution and the system by which it runs. A legal system that functions, a governmental system that functions and deals with the diversity of thought in the country. That's what it really is. And a bunch of these folks, if you're too far to the crust, you don't believe that the other side either has a say, has a solution, believes they have a solution, or wants to participate in it. And what we're seeing from even the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the world is that once they are faced with having to be reelected, once they are faced with having to actually serve their constituents, they start decrying the same cost pressures that Democrats talk about. They start decrying the same healthcare costs. We're at the end of the hour. Johnny's got to run. I appreciate it. I'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Love you, Hal. Thanks for understanding.
Yeah, I understand, buddy. And it's probably good that I get to, have the audience all to myself.
Do it
a bit. I don't know if Phil's coming in or not.
I don't think he is.
Andrea, I don't think so either. Yeah, he's traveling, so that's totally fine. I've got tons that I can talk about, so obviously I'm all pent up.
I bet you do.
That stuff.
All right, my man. All right.
See you later, buddy.
Love you big time. Bye.
That sounds weird.
I know.
All right, there he goes. All right, hi, chat room. Sorry, I've made a mess of my dad's drafting table. Because I've been camped on this. These lights, by the way, my dad has had for I don't know, since 1980 on the same desk. There might be the same bulbs for all I know. There's a very specific kind of drafting bulb. And hold on, chat room. I'm going to bring you in because I can put you guys, boop, there you go, on there with me, which is lovely. And I got to scroll down because, man, it's hard to catch up. There you go. And thank you guys for your love and support these last couple of weeks. Whew. Yeah. Chicago, how much time do we have?
I can get you more time, but we got a minute.
Yeah, that's fine. That's good.
Cool.
Just curious. trying to turn this over here without darkening myself in this. There we go.
We're back in 20.
Okay, great. Coming back in a second.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you if the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Puss-faced little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
So it's also, by the way, Taco Week. Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm Hal Sparks solo today, which is a lot of fun, actually, because it'd be nice to catch up with you guys. I've to catch a little bit of you up. If you don't know, my dad has been ill for quite some time. He's been on dialysis for about 6 years. And after 6 years of it, and at 86 years old, he has decided, well, for lack of a better word, to 86 himself, in a bit of comedic irony, as my family is wont to do. He has decided to forego dialysis and kidney treatment from this point on and allow nature to take its course. And it is a plodding and ugly process, full of tears and depth and honor and little moments of joy. And it's something that far too many people face in this world. And I keep thinking back, because we're out here in the woods. I grew up in Peaksville, Kentucky, in effectively a log cabin. Our house there had an addition onto it, but the primary house we lived in, was a house from the early 1800s that was a log cabin that was built there. And it was it was actually a church. It was a small church, one room. It was, I think, 20 by 20, where they held services during the Civil War too. They used that house as a little church. And then it became a home. And then again, after the war, and then someone built onto the side of it. And then my dad built another room onto it, and two rooms, my bedroom and my sister's bedroom. And we had our water brought in by the city. It was poured into a cistern. If we ran out, that was it. That meant I would have to crap in the creek when I was a kid. Happened a lot. And when we didn't have central air in the house, and during the winter when it was cold, we would bring down an old wood stove that my dad kept in the attic. And it was a big iron monstrosity. And my dad and I would have to carry it down this folding ladder that went up into the attic, and where we would store this thing. And he had gotten, because he's an architect, he got a slab of marble countertop that was about 2.5 feet by 3.5 feet that fit just perfectly on the ground, that we could use as a base under this wood burning stove. And then there was a pipe that would attach to the back of the stove, and it would go up into the chimney, and that's where the smoke from it would go. And we would heat the house with that wood burning stove. And during really cold nights in the winter, my parents would sleep in their room with every blanket in the house, and my sister and I would sleep. My sister would sleep on the couch, and I would sleep on the floor in front of the wood burning stove. And I would get up, you know, in the middle of the night and put another log on the fire. Cook me up some bacons and some beans and go out to the car and change the tire. Wash my socks and sew my old blue jeans. That was one of the songs we would just kind of laughingly whistle while we threw wood in the wood burning stove to heat the house. And I keep thinking that if we were off by a couple of decades, helping my dad through this period in that house would have been an order of magnitude more difficult. And there are people all around that go through this kind of thing, you know, in a similar situation. And yeah, Mr. Barr says hospice workers are absolute saints. Your families needed more than once. Yeah, they were lovely. And my brother-in-law, I have a sister, Jill, and her husband has had cancer for years. He's been on chemo as kind of a running therapy almost. And you know, he works every day, and while having cancer and while working every day, went through what I'm going through with my dad with both of his parents. And so that, as a Democrat, that is what informs my behavior and my attitude about the health and well-being of my fellow citizens more than anything else. And my mom's a nurse, like I said, and she worked for the Obamacare outreach that they did after she had retired here in Kentucky. And there were so many people that would come by the state fair where they would set up a booth, and they would, you know, they'd sign up and go, so glad we got this Kentucky Connect instead of that stupid Obamacare. And this woman sitting next to her would go, actually, it is Obamacare. And they would, and my mom was like, shut up. Don't tell them, because they need this, and who cares? It's good that they have it. They don't need to know that it's Obamacare yet. Now, in retrospect, somebody should have dropped by afterwards and told them, after it was helping them, going, hey, by the way, you've been on Obamacare this entire time. Yeah, Kentucky Connect Care. That's exactly right. Democrats should have made a bigger push to crow about the things that they do right. And that, if you want to hold Democrats' feet to the fire, the first thing you have to do is put the fear of Democratic voters in the blood of Republicans. They have to know we're going to show up for our priorities every single time. Because if they don't, if they hear, you know, nothing but backbiting and criticism, and that's the primary thing that they hear is this infighting, they're not afraid of Democrats. And when they get in, they will try to, you know, shove through as much stuff as they can, because they're not worried that Republicans, you know, or that, you know, the Democrats will show up every time. They know Republicans will. That's how they got the Supreme Court. So on that note, this has been beyond, you know, BUBBA weekend. It's been another, you know, well, it will be, a taco week for Donald Trump, where he signed an executive order because of this fear of raising prices going up for beef, tomatoes, coffee, bananas, tropical fruit, and fertilizer. Beef, tomatoes, coffee, bananas, tropical fruit, and fertilizer. Now, think, if you will, of all the countries that Donald Trump has put a tariff on of 45, 60% in general, right? I'm just giving a blanket tariff on these countries. Well, what do tariffs apply to? What are they actually on? They're only on things that we buy from those countries. Okay? They are only, you know, who cares if you tariff a country? If we don't import anything from that country, it's just noise. It makes no sense. And even further, the most ridiculous part of it, and why there are all these taco trades on why the Dow is basically ignoring Trump entirely at this point, is because these taco situations where he just rescinds tariffs on certain items all applies strictly to the only things that we actually buy from those countries. Who cares if they make cars if we don't buy them? If Trump puts a tariff on China, but takes it off on all consumer goods and electronics, but it only applies to cars, which they can't sell in the United States, or, fuel oil or something ridiculous, which we sell more to them than we would ever buy from. It becomes a point where the tariffs exist on paper, but in practicality, they do nothing. That's why the market has not been impacted by a lot of these tariffs, is because he's tariffing countries across the board, and then he's rescinding the tariffs on the stuff we buy from them, which means there are no tariffs on a bunch of these countries. He dropped the tariffs on beef, tomatoes, coffee, tropical fruit, and fertilizer on countries where those are the only things we get from those countries. There are no other products from these countries that we buy. Oh, except in the rare occasion that they make some sort of ridiculous consumer good, like passenger airplane parts or something like that, so that his rich buddies can service their planes. All the carve outs for caviar and stuff like that, where, honest to God, like they'll fold it under foodstuffs, and it's this minor thing because it never would chart anyways, but his buddies don't have to pay for caviar anymore. And so all of these situations where he's going, well, okay, we'll drop that one. We'll drop that one. We'll drop this one. We'll drop this one. We'll cut this one in half or whatever. It all goes back to, how were tariffs working before? What were they before? Well, they were a 2 to 5% tariff, depending on the country and the volume of goods that we get from them. And then a specific product from that country that they might try to dump on our market because they need to sell a bunch of it, and they can sell it cheaper than our makers can, and therefore they're undermining our market. Or they actively and strategically do it like the Chinese do, which is the Chinese will take a product and they will sell it at a loss for a time just to gut the industry in a country, not just ours, but in Europe, in the Middle East, and even in Africa, so that no one who wants to sell that from the goods on the ground can catch up with the price point and the volume that's already in the market. It is already saturated. You can't start a factory and start making those things because you would be in debt for a decade trying to catch up to them, and by that time it's too late. Right. Dumping isn't legal, says Aaron Weston, and that's exactly right. And that's why the president has the ability, when dealing with those kind of things, strategic product, or commodity dumping in the country, you can respond to that. But he's been responding to all the goods we buy. Trump thinks that the deficit that we have, the trade deficit we have with China, is because they won't buy our goods, and not the fact that by and large they've been our wholesaler for a long time. So to watch him sort of wake up to, oh crap, okay, well, we do need that. We're not going to grow bananas in Montana. Oh, we don't have big coffee fields in the United States. Okay, well, that we'll let that through. Okay, star fruit and that kind of stuff. Okay, that kind of thing, specialty. Well, we won't buy oil from that, but we need naphtha to, for plastics, and that kind of stuff. We'll allow, we'll take sanctions off of Russian naphtha because China needs it to make plastic, because we want to buy that stuff. At a certain point, we are back to a normal, trade situation with the tariffs. It's just a lot of noise. And nothing says that more loudly than this executive order this week, where he drops it on coffee, beef, fruit, and fertilizer from countries that is the singular thing we buy them from, those countries, and they're going right back to normal. And he's still telling maggots that there's a 50% tariff on these countries. But again, a tariff only applies to the goods that we actually purchase. And if you have an exception for every good that we purchase from these countries, then there is no 50% tariff. There's a 2% tariff, which is exactly what we had under Biden, which is exactly what we had under Bush, which is exactly what we had under Obama or Clinton, because the American public wants these goods or these foodstuffs, and they want to pay for them, pay a reasonable price for them, because there is no industry to grow or make those things here. And then we get to soybeans. I have a special personal tale to tell you. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to come back. I want to tell you about a soybean farmer that I met, that's a friend of my dad's, who came to visit, and what he's going through in this ridiculousness. We'll be back right after this. Trump is doing what he knows, extortion. It's not working anymore. Yeah, you have to have something to extort with. And thank you. And you don't have if you don't have the power of if you can't tell the consumers to go, hey, stop buying this. We're not, power of the boycott, which he won't do. We'll get to that in a second. So.
This is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So Donald Trump has been, there's been no commodity that has had caused a bigger upheaval in the world of MAGA than soybeans. Now, if you'll recall, ladies and gentlemen, that soy boys were one of the phrases that right-wingers would use when discussing liberals, that they eat soy, they eat tofu, and they eat soybeans, and it's got estrogen mocking effects, so it makes you less masculine to eat soy and all that kind of stuff. So this was the story they told. But the American soy farmer, the reason there was a rise in tofu in the United States and stuff, besides people, I guess, liking miso soup with their sushi at a restaurant and that kind of stuff, and that becoming, more normalized over time, was that there would always be a certain amount you would just sell locally, whatever your crop is. That's how I ended up having to eat a stupid amount of okra, which no one can make taste good. I'm just telling you. Even my wonderful cousin Brigitte, who is a wonderful chef. That's what she does for a living. And her mother was from Belgium. We lost her a few years ago. She was lovely and incredibly French in her attitude. Jet black hair, cigarette, the whole deal. Heavy French accent. And she, no one can make okra taste good. I'm sorry. It's just not possible. Try as you might. You can eat it in a pinch. I will eat anything to stay alive. I make a mean cattail salad if we're ever near some swampy water here in Kentucky. But there's always some leftover if you've got a market that's almost entirely foreign for some sort of farm good. And so it starts becoming cheap, and you can make soy milk from it and those kind of things. And again, soy milk became another kind of pejorative with the soy boy thing. Now, but the in parallel, and this fits in right with the maggot lie we've heard for so long, in parallel with this whole castigating the soy boys out there, American farmers have shifted to soybeans as a massive cash crop because of the Asian market, because China imports 80% of its food. Japan needs soybeans, especially if they have a bad crop year or whatever, so they need a backup. We're one of those places that can do it. But also our dear friends down in Argentina with Milei and the overvalued Argentinian peso and the wonderful chicanery that is going on with Scott Bessent renewing, his old habit of currency manipulation that he learned under George Soros, which again is one of those things where, those that kind of like anime thing where a question mark and 2 exclamation points appear over someone's head and it's like bing, noise happens. That always happens when Scott Bessent's name comes up as a married gay man with children who used to work for George Soros, who is directing and crafting Trump's trade and currency policies. That's we'll put a pin in that for later as well. But the soybeans that American farmers have over time started selling to the Asian market replaced a lot of other crops that might sell here in the United States. Sorry, Big Steph just said fried okra is delicious. No. You're talking about the fried part. By the time you get to the okra element of it, you could have fried anything. Okay. And I like silken tofu. I'm not, I've eaten it in every form, as you might imagine, but, I like tempeh, but, that's it. Right as, of course, we're giving $20 billion to stabilize the currency of Argentina that is already overvalued so that Milei can claim that he has successfully free marketed the country back in an Ayn Rand sense back to its heyday, when in reality it would not even exist without the American taxpayer propping it up to the tune of $20 billion / $30 billion, because again, we heard, yes, and then 40, right, is that, the initial was 20, but they kept feeding money into it, priming the pump effectively after the election to keep people sort of on board with this. At the exact same time we paid him that money to keep it afloat, he sells $20 billion worth of soybeans to China, undercutting the American soybean farmer. So a friend of my dad's has a farm in Indiana and came to visit my dad. And we had a wonderful conversation, and it was a very sweet visit. He and I both had tears in our eyes, I would say 80% of the time he was here, and just talking about my dad and their friendship and all that. And he's about 10 years younger than me, maybe 6 years younger than me. But he's got a farm in Indiana that his family has had since the 1700s. And they have been hand farming it themselves. This is a northern farm, I would like to point out, not part of the 6% of of the population of America that were slave owners in the United States and all. Where am I? That direction, behind me, south. And again, Kentucky was a split state during the Civil War. Brother on brother was the story. But this Indiana farmer has had a really rough time over the last little bit because they had to harvest what was effectively, because it came during this window of China not buying these soybeans, they were harvesting these soybeans strictly to clear the ground, working 10-hour days, 6 days a week for 3 weeks straight to harvest all this stuff. And again, these are people who aren't using migrant labor and paying them under the table. This is a family farm, and they have workers that are, paid right, and still didn't have enough people and were working their ass off to get this stuff in before the first frost. Now, I posted pictures recently, and I've done very little social media, and I have to say that during this time, every time I start, it feels inadequate to the circumstance. That social media, as close and as quick as it has made our interactions, it has also made it very much like fast food, and it is wholly inadequate in dealing with the times where we are it requires a sit-down meal of conversation and emotion. And in talking to him, he was exhausted. And everybody that worked for him was exhausted from just physical labor for weeks and weeks. And in this, they dealt with this fact that he just timed it randomly, that Trump arbitrarily decided he was going to, start this stuff up with China again specifically, and that China would use the soybeans that they buy as a wedge issue. Now, I know Americans have a hard time believing that we're not the center of the universe and the only participants in geopolitics. It is very strange to me, having traveled the world and especially spent as much time in China as I have, that there is a, I don't know, what's the word for de-anthropomorphication, where well, I guess it would be dehumanize, where we dehumanize everyone else on the planet as not being capable of being clever, conniving, or dangerous. For fear that if we present that idea at all, the Dick Cheneys of the world will use as an excuse to be their worst. And so we hold back on those things, and we pretend that China is not engaged in active measures against the United States at any given time, and the rest of Western Europe as well, and that Russia is an active participant in that as well, and that Iran is an active participant of that, and that they aren't willing to starve or undermine our economy the way they would do with areas of their own country. And so when it comes to, them not buying soybeans from the United States and buying them from Argentina, even though it's not as much as they need. There's something you have to understand about the Chinese Communist Party and the people running it, and the provincial leaders and stuff, is that they really do believe that this is war, that economics are war all the time. And that if it means 5% of their populace dies in this trade war, they're willing to do that. They believe this is a game of chicken. And the Republicans envy this. The Republicans specifically, and if we look at how I want to talk about after I come back. I read the CR, the continuing resolution, and the amendment that they made to it. And I would like to remind everyone that everyone who is talking about it or griping about it is by and large wrong and hasn't read it. And we've been through this before. We'll be back right after this. Joseph, American agro-food is literally not poison. It is literally not. It's the processing that makes it poisonous most of the time. And if you, where have all these tariff monies collected? Where all the tariff money he claims he collected? He says it's on a shelf somewhere. That's how nuts this is. We found $38 billion we didn't know was there. Oh, that's because it was budgeted from last year, stupid. It's American taxpayer money. Or it's actually debt taken on by the American taxpayer. It wasn't on the tariff shelf. This is lunacy. This is childish. Sorry. Beef farmers fill the meat with hormones and steroids. No. There's a difference between organic and grass-fed and your sort of McDonald's beef, which a lot of it also comes from Mexico and from South America, and cattle raised here. That is so much of that is overstated.
Back in 20.
Thank you. Yeah, they think they're going to get this dividend payment, right? Hold on, we'll be back right.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
You know how Trump always talks about common sense. He's the common sense guy. He's the common sense. We're just the party of common sense. Common sense. And I would argue that they are actually the party of common misconceptions. Narratives that have been told over and over and over again, so much so that people believe them, even though they are not true. Think of them as sort of mass confirmation bias. And, one of the things that you hear is just if you believe the common misconception is that all the farms in this country, half of what you're eating are toxic chemicals. Every bite of broccoli is half DDT or something like that. And it is not the case, largely because of the consumer in the United States. That consumers in the United States, one of the reasons why maggots beef prices have gone up is partially because of demand and supply issues, that there are not enough cows and it takes years to replenish the cattle herd. And they are in the process of doing that. But, like a chicken only takes a few months to go from a chick to laying eggs. So the egg market can be replenished after a wipeout much quicker. Beef takes longer because for a cow to be raised to the point where it produces milk or it is mature enough to be turned into steaks takes years. And so that alone will always affect the price of beef. That is a supply and demand issue that there is no quick solution for. Period. End of story. The only way you can solve that is what Trump is trying to do, which is buy a bunch of Argentinian beef and dump it onto the market, which is exactly the wrong time to do it because the cattle ranchers in the United States are trying to replenish their herds. And if the cost of beef goes down, it's the same as like oil prices and oil drilling. This is why OPEC tries to keep the price of oil high, because they have to have it be $10 to $15 over the cost of the wholesale cost of the oil, producing it, extracting it, and moving it around, or they can't have new wells. And eventually when a well dries up, they've got to have a new well to continue to produce. So there's the regular oil wells that they need to produce just to keep up with the regular demand. And then there's the demand they think is going to happen that they have to prepare for down the line, which I would like to, can I just high five myself about the oil glut? We'll talk about that in a minute. But when it comes to a lot of the beef grown in the United States, maggots themselves have participated in a market that used to be the purview of liberals, which was organic, healthy, cage-free, grass-fed, all those kind of things that you would associate. And I'm going to take this, by the way, as a win for Democrats. There are a bunch of things that Republicans now do that used to be solely the purview and the sort of cause celeb of Democrats. One of those being simply organic food without a lot of chemicals in it, that are more natural, right? This used to be a hippie thing. This used to be, think back to the late 80s, early 90s. The people that would do that, that were into, natural foods or the organic movement straight out of California, almost, by the way, a joke about California, organic everything, right? Now that Republicans and maggots with them have come along on that, which, by the way, is one of the things. Why do big agribusiness companies use, too many antibiotics and use things like steroids in their beef and all this kind of stuff? It's to lower the price or lower the cost of making it so they can raise the value of the beef for selling it. Again, for that margin, whatever that is, to either expand, have more cows, anything kind of stuff. But now, maggots, you can go into Kroger's here in Kentucky, and stuff is marked grass-fed specifically. And the people who don't eat grass-fed would love to. They just can't afford it yet. So they eat the regular stuff. But the grass-fed stuff, and again, free range is different from cage-free. Cage-free is, that's playing with words. It's also like, organic, meaning you can use organic pesticides, I guess would be the thing, and get away with still saying that. But the point being is that maggots themselves have contributed to the rise in beef prices because their demand for quality has gone up. At the same time, the volume of actual cattle has gone down. That's why. It's not because of government regulations. It's not because, vegans are screwing the market, and people are producing more soybeans because of, too many vegetarians or something. It's because maggots themselves have decided, hey, maybe I don't think, maybe I want a pure, healthier, more natural kind of, back to basics, Western style, animal to eat. And this is coming from, by the way, someone who has frozen venison up in the fridge upstairs that I'm going to eat later, because I grew up in Kentucky. The meat I ate the most as a child was venison, which is deer meat, in case you don't know. Out there, I don't know who wouldn't, but there you go. But maggots, look across the sort of CrossFit Republican, evangelical crossover, and you will find a bunch of people who insist on eating grass-fed bison, grass-fed beef, grass-fed, everything, like free-range chicken, organic, no pesticides, no antibiotics, all that kind of stuff. If you think they don't want the jab, they certainly don't want their food to have the jab. And what happens? The price goes up because it's harder to keep animals that don't have a bunch of antibiotics in their body alive. So you're going to have fewer of them because they're just going to die. That's a supply and demand problem. It has nothing to do with the federal government's regulations. It has nothing to do with, someone else screwing up the market for you. Your own demand has raised the price. And instead of just saying, oh yeah, well, I demand better and I recognize the price of it's going to go up because I don't want antibiotics in there, and that's why they were there in the first place, maggots pretend it's somebody else's fault. By and large, that's where maggots fall. And again, I'm going to take every win. Every time a maggot comes out and defends gay marriage, even if they do it full-throatedly or if they just say that ship has sailed and we don't need to fight that fight anymore, or they're like, I don't want antibiotics and pesticides and all that kind of stuff, I'm going to take that as a win. That means they are adopting our position. We won. And you're seeing that increasingly in a bunch of areas. And that also needs to be addressed. When Republicans start whining about SNAP benefits in their states, that's us winning. They don't, when Democrats force them with the CR deal that was made to have a vote about the ACA that's coming up in December. And the big fear, of course, with everybody else, the catastrophizing slacktivists that we all see, that they're going to vote against it, or they're not going to do the vote at all, or they're going to punt it. The problem is that a huge number of Republicans use the ACA, need the ACA. Red states rely on it in many ways more than blue states do. People with more disposable income tend to buy their own insurance or at a financial level higher than the ACA would cover for a tax credit. But the people that are in that tax credit area or need Medicaid expansion, those are all, that by and large, that is a ton of red state people. That's why the ACA, keeping the ACA tax credits, has a 78% favorability rating in the country. In this, we've never been more divided, right? Think about that. We've never been more. If you ask anybody, this is the most polarized the country has ever been. And yet in the polarization that we're talking about, the vast majority of the American people are supportive of or have come to the understanding that gay marriage is completely normal and is a part of the society now. Pot legalization or decriminalization, whichever form it comes in a state, used to be simply the purview of some, Topanga Canyon in California. And now it's almost everybody I talk to if I ask them about it in Kentucky will absolutely say they're for it. Same thing with Indiana, right here. We're right at the border, and Ohio. That's a win for us. That's the Republicans coming around to the fact that we were telling the truth the whole time. Our idea worked, and there is no reasonable alternative to it. And so that vote where, again, after reading the CR and seeing how it continues the funding by and large from last year and protects so many vulnerable people. And it sets up that vote. And we're going to be back in this boat in January. If they don't have this vote, we're going to be right back to a government shutdown in January, in winter, when it's cold, when big parts of the country are being affected by nor'easters and all kinds of stuff like that. There is a huge impetus with a weakened Epstein BUBBA-linked Trump. And 78% of the electorate. By the way, I would like to say that of the people who are against the ACA tax credits continuing, 8% of them are Democrats. 8% of that, 20 some odd, it fluctuates, but that 22%, 8% of them are Democrats. The rest are Republicans and some independents. Almost all independents, like independents are almost for it more than, Democrats, then independents, then Republicans. But even Republicans are like 60%, 58%. There is not a situation where they can cut off these things and not have it bite them right in time for the midterms. The timing of this matters as well. So the reality is that Republicans are getting boxed into a corner where they must live up to the standards that Democrats have set because they have no alternative. And I got news for you. From the polling that I have seen of Republicans, especially young Republicans, they are more favorable to a public option being added to the ACA in the next 6 years, in the next cycle of the next presidency, the next midterms or the one after that, than Democrats were when the ACA came out. We're talking, 68, 70%. Young Republicans, the Turning Points USA crowd, the Charlie Kirk followers, that age group. This is a crucial aspect of this. So anyways, I want to take a break, and I'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. The catastrophizing is a waste of time. And when I come back, I want to tell you why there's no narrative. Hold on 1 second. Let me bring things. I have so many pages open on my iPad. It's absurd. Where are you? Okay, there we go. The appropriation film. There we go. Hang on 1 second. Whoops, hold on. Whoops. All right. I could type. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Coming back in 5.
Cool.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
A good example, Ken is asking in the chat room, did the CR include a much lower standard of THC and CBD products, virtually outlawing them? Only in intoxicating products, and specifically hemp-derived, which means they would be outside the kind of legalized weed world of things, where it has to come, the cannabinoids have to come from the natural plant itself, not synthesized both from hemp or chemically, that they were using in vapes and stuff like that. So full spectrum ones that get you high and stuff outside of those things, would effectively be outlawed. But the CBD, the THC and THCA are slightly different chemically. The THCA stuff is what they're trying to get out. And that, turned basically like stuff you could buy at a gas station, and, from a pain remedy, or a salve, whatever, to something that you could basically vape or smoke. No, there would still be vapes that would do it, but it would have to be specifically marijuana-based THC that would have to come from the plant itself, as opposed to synthesizing it from hemp, and then like upscaling it to make it an intoxicant. So, anyways, that would be one of the here. I'll see if I can find the actual piece of this, the section of it, and there you go. This is from the Texas Tribune, I think. Yeah, fresh off. This is where I think it started, and this is the fascinating part, because this is from the Texas Tribune. I want to read you something from there. Fresh off defeating the state THC ban, Texas hemp industry faces wipeout under federal deal to end the shutdown. And this, as part of the spending deal to end the government shutdown, federal lawmakers approved a provision cracking down on hemp products containing THC, restoring a ban Texas Republicans sought to impose earlier this year. The funding package passed by the U.S. House and signed into law by Trump on Wednesday includes language banning the sale of hemp-derived products with more than 0.4 milligrams of THC, the psychoactive element in marijuana. The measure would criminalize almost all consumable hemp products nationwide. The provision was added at the last minute to a bill that provides year-long funding to the Department of Agriculture. It closes the proponents called what the ban called a loophole from the 2018 Farm Bill that allowed the hemp industry to take off without federal regulations. Unless Congress reverses course, the ban is set to start a year from now. This would be after the midterms. Now, this is another one of those aspects where Democrats are front-loading things where the election next year should already matter. It should already matter. But it really will matter for a lot of people if they're paying attention because of how Democrats have been able to stave off elements of this stuff until after that period. In which case, they could put a hold on it inside Congress under review, ad infinitum, in theory. So they could just kind of hold it in that. So I don't know that Trump knows or cares what was in there anyways. And he may try to, God knows, he may try to shut down the government when Democrats are in charge just by refusing to sign it. If, again, he's even in charge himself next year. This is, he goes, yeah, the House did not take a one-off vote on the hemp ban, but some Texas Republicans weighed in against the idea because it wouldn't pass. Voting for the overall funding package, Crenshaw of Houston believes a ban should be decided by individual states. So even within Texas, they're not necessarily for it. So you can look to Republicans even revising that next year because it will be unpopular in Texas, where the hemp industry is very pissed and is a huge industry. So, and again, this does not affect marijuana products. This is simply stuff derived from hemp. And that, I guess that goes maybe to some states that have still not decriminalized. And Trump has been flirting with decriminalization this whole time. Again, if he does it, it will ultimately be a win for Democrats. If he folds and realizes that these are things that we've been pushing for a long time, and then he folds and does it. Yeah. This wasn't going to make me vote against this and keep the government shut down. We'll leave that issue for another day. That's what Crenshaw said. Troy Nehls from a Republican Richmond said he would have preferred the hemp ban was not part of the funding deal, but said reopening the government was more important. Other Republicans, including Keith Self from who's a Republican, and Pete Sessions, praised the bill for closing loophole. These are older guys, different industries, and also that this would be the hemp wars between different states who have different rules about certain things. That's just the reality. But again, we would not be in this mess at all if Democrats were in charge of the House and the Senate at all. You want to fix it? Elect whatever Democrat can get elected in any district. Primarying somebody who's already in there, waste of time. Again, our only goal, red districts purple, purple districts blue. If you turn a red district purple, then the Republicans have to act like human beings and they can't legislate from the fringe. If you turn a purple district blue, that's a vote we have that we didn't have before. That's all that matters. Red districts purple, purple districts blue. You get no points at all for the next 3 rounds turning a blue district bluer. Period. And this is an excellent point from Wicked Stepsister, who says, never would have happened under Harris. Exactly. I would argue even the shutdown wouldn't have happened under Harris. We certainly wouldn't have ships blowing up boats off of Venezuela, or she certainly wouldn't be threatening a ground war in South America to fight cartels. She would simply use the Coast Guard and our military and Interpol and stuff like we normally do to slow that down. And again, I want to constantly throw this in maggots' faces. And I want to remind everyone that the border is effectively closed. 0 people are crossing, as they say, over and over and over again. And yet, has the availability of fentanyl in the United States gone down at all? No, it has not. It has not gotten more expensive. The rules of supply and demand apply in drugs just as much as any other commodity, and the price has not gone up. Why is that? Because the southern border was never the primary source of fentanyl getting into the country. It was always coming in luggage and in shipping containers. So also, yes, if Harris were president, the budget deficit would be lower. I would argue that it would even be lower than it was under Biden, but it certainly would not be up. And I would remind all of our maggot friends who are dropping by in the chat room, which I'm sure you've missed me just as much as anybody else has. I specifically that the budget deficit is 350 so far. So far, by the way, and because of the shutdown, we don't know the actual numbers that have extended past that. So far, $350 billion higher than it was under Biden. Inflation, still around 3%. Hasn't gone down. Oop, I'm hearing noise upstairs. Okay. We should be all right. I do how like a lemon pie in the face. All right. I see. Gotcha. All right. Yes, I love the trolls. I'm glad the trolls are here. And by the way, on my way out the door, I would like to say congratulations to the trolls. You played yourself. And also, Trump is everything that you have seen about Trump in the Epstein files, about him, getting a photograph from a friend showing him buying a woman, a depreciated woman. The fact that Epstein says that he hung out with Virginia Giuffre for hours, and that part of her saying he never did anything wrong may have been an attempt to save her own life, a futile attempt, considering that the man she would have accused is the president of the United States right now, and the Supreme Court has allowed him to effectively be lawless and kill his enemies and those that might criticize him with impunity if he believes it to be, or says he believes it to be a national security threat. Whatever you have seen in those files, including the transcript of, a deposition by a 14-year-old girl that he sexually assaulted allegedly in her statement. Whatever you haven't seen yet is worse. He would not be calling Nancy Mace and Lauren Boebert to have a meeting at the White House to try to talk them into taking their name off the discharge position for the vote that is happening this Wednesday if all the bad stuff was already out. Think about that. Dwell on that. And I will see you guys next week. I'm not sure when I will be doing shows again. I'm sorry. I'm dealing with my family issue. And as we say around here, family first. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. And remember, if you're ever confronted with a decision that you think is the lesser of two evils, is between the lesser of two evils, choose less evil each and every time. Vote like an adult, not like a kid that thinks they should be able to go into a candy store. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys next week. Thank you guys so much. I was going to maybe talk to you guys for a few moments after the show, but I heard noises upstairs. So I think they might be trying to move my dad around and they might need me. So I'm going to run upstairs and take care of that. My cousin and my stepmom have been doing their best. I have no doubt taking care of my dad while I've been on the show. So I'm going to bug off right away. And I love you guys and I appreciate you. And I will see you guys again as soon as I possibly can. Thanks.